Chapter 1801. Seeing that Qi Xuanxuan's eyes were red and she looked like she was about to cry, Aba quickly reached out and pinched her little cheeks. Xian, I'll be fine. Ah, by the way, I have half a grilled fish here. Do you want it? Aba took out half a grilled fish from under her sleeve and stuffed it into Qi Xuanxuan's hand. As an experienced foodie, Qi Xian could tell at a glance that it was a half-burnt grilled fish. It did not smell good either. Even so, a foodie like her could not resist the temptation of food. Qi Xian quickly reached out and took it. She nodded and said, I haven't eaten anything all day. Why aren't you eating? Aba frowned. How can I eat when I think about how you're still alive? Now that she saw that Xiao Mu had returned unscathed, Qi Xuanxuan's spirits also improved slightly. Aba could not help but raise her hand to knock her head. Are you stupid? What could possibly happen to me? Where are the others? We left 2 people at the Yu family's entrance every day to try our luck and see if we can gather any information about you. Qi Xian said, the others went to the city to look for you. We don't know where you went. We've almost turned the entire Anka city upside down. Jojo, where are you hiding? Aba could not help but reach out to touch her nose. Nowhere. Aba felt a little apologetic when she thought about how her friends were looking for her everywhere. However, the matter in the star region was too important, and she did not want to reveal it to anyone for the time being. Xian, wait for me here. Aba was about to step forward when Qi Xian suddenly pulled her back. Where are you going? The Yu family caused me so much trouble. I have to kill their old patriarch. I have to avenge myself. Aba said through clenched teeth. Qi Xian shook her head helplessly. I don't think you should go. The Yu clan had been completely exterminated 10 days ago. However, I heard that Patriarch Yu escaped with his 2 sons. They probably escaped to another residence. We haven't found any traces of them yet. Upon hearing this, Aba immediately frowned in displeasure. Who did it? It should be young Master Ding from Qian Luo's underground battle arena. Qi Xian said in a low voice. What she didn't say was that young Master Ding had also sent people to look for Aba. Although she didn't think that Jojo had a good relationship with young Master Ding, it seemed that young Master Ding was quite wishful thinking. Mind your own business. Aba said angrily. It was as if he had punched a ball of cotton. It didn't feel good at all. Originally, he wanted to drag out that Yu clan's old man and give him a good whipping. But now, he actually beat the grass to scare the snake and scared the old man away. Damn it! This matter was not over yet. Xiao Mu grumbled maliciously in her heart. Even if that old man from the Yu clan fled to the ends of the earth, she would still kill him. There was also that brother Go behind the Yu clan. He could not let him off. Jojo, let's go see Instructor Wei Wei and the others first. Qi Xian held her little hand and didn't let go. The instructors have been running around for you recently. Cough, when we meet later, don't diss Instructor Wei Wei. Huh? Who dissed him? Aba snorted. She couldn't be bothered to diss this neurotic instructor Wei Wei. Qi Xian laughed helplessly. She held Aba's little hand, and the 3 of them walked towards a nearby inn. Broken sleep, make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 1802. It was already 10 o'clock at night. Qi Xian and Aba had just settled down in the inn when they saw Mentor Wei Wei and the others return in exhaustion. These days, they had rummaged through Anka City countless times in a row, and everyone looked emaciated. When they saw the little stoic meet their eyes, they were momentarily dazed. It wasn't until Mata exclaimed, Jojo, you're back, that everyone finally realized that their eyes weren't twitching. Duanmu Qing quickly walked up and sized her up. Are you all right? Aba blinked and shook her small head. What can happen to this lady? You're making a fuss over nothing. Bam! Mentor Zhou Danjin jumped up without any explanation and smacked the back of her head with a crisp chestnut. The little stoic clutched the back of her head with one hand, and a trace of exasperation appeared on her expressionless face. What are you doing? Qi Xian couldn't resist coughing lightly and wanted to cover her mouth to snicker. The short mentor with red eyebrows and green eyes scolded, "You darn girl, why didn't you send us a message if you had nothing better to do? You made the mentors search for you everywhere in Anka City all day long. They're dog-tired." The stoic girl raised her eyebrows and secretly piqued at Mentor Zhou's furious appearance. She instantly felt that she was in the wrong and whispered, "It was just a small accident." "What small accident? Are you stupid?" Mentor Zhou said angrily, "Don't you know how to call for help? Why are you acting like a hero? If you didn't jump up with that person from the Yu family, don't tell me he could have caught you by force?" Aba's small face flushed red. No one had ever called her stupid since she was young. Who didn't call her an exceptionally intelligent little genius? This baby was so angry. Humph. Mentor Wei Wei also snorted eccentrically. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes were clearly filled with disdain. It was as though he was saying, "I knew you, little girl, were disorganized and had no team spirit. You only know how to mess around when something happens." "I'm going to sleep." The little stoic flushed with anger and turned to run off in a huff. Zhou Danjin chuckled mischievously and pointed at the little fellow's back as she ran up the stairs. "The stoic girl can get angry too. All right, you guys should go and rest too." The other three instructors also nodded at Duanmu Qing and the others. "Everyone has been tired for so many days. Have a good rest. We will return to the academy the day after tomorrow." Aber secretly observed for a moment. Seeing that everyone had returned to their rooms and their figures had gradually disappeared in the corridor, she opened the door and looked around. She curled her lips and snorted. Taking out a dozen peaches from his inner world, Aber had a palm leaf fan in his small hand. He opened the window, stacked the peaches on the table in front of him, and fanned them. After fanning for a while, he heard the doors on both sides of the corridor open one after another. Many people stood at their doorsteps, looking around and sniffing. "It smells so good." Qi Xian and Little Fatty were the first to arrive when they smelled the fragrance. They knocked on the door of Aba's room. "The door isn't locked," Aba said in a muffled voice. The two of them immediately hopped in. By the time the 5 instructors caught wind of the commotion and arrived, Aba's room had long been packed with students. The short instructor who was the last to enter hastily closed the door behind him, isolating everyone's gazes from the corridor. He walked in and shouted, "What are you doing here in the middle of the night instead of sleeping?" Everyone was eating a peach in their hands, so no one had the time to pay attention to the 5 instructors. Chapter 1803. The 5 instructors looked at each other, speechless. Qi Xian hurriedly said, "Aya, instructors, there are 5 leftovers. Do you want some?" Only idiots would not want them. They smelled so sweet and comfortable. They must be excellent spirit peaches. One had to know that after Paradise Planet became a spirit domain, all the trees, flowers, and fruits on Paradise Planet also improved greatly. Qi Xian asked the little fatty to pass the peaches to the 5 instructors. The 5 of them secretly glanced at a certain expressionless child who was drinking tea calmly. As the saying went, the gift blinds the eye. Zhou Danjin coughed lightly and consoled Xiao Mu, "It's very late, so you should all rest early." I didn't mean to scold you. The main thing is, if something happens in the future, remember to look for me." "Why do you think the instructors came with you? Isn't it to protect you? Isn't it to encourage us to participate in the arena so that you can secretly make an unexpected fortune?" The students glanced at each other. Satisfied, they returned to their rooms. The next day, everyone rested in Anka City for a day. During this time, Aber reluctantly took out 2 or 3 cups of spirit tea for everyone to taste. Qi Xian was speechless when she tasted it. "I feel like the spirit energy in this tea has increased a lot." That was natural. The entire mystic domain had become a spirit realm. The spirit energy contained in the spirit tea tree was naturally more abundant. Wei Wei and the others came to a realization. They looked at Aber and said, "When you're exhausted in the arena, you drink this spirit tea every time, right?" Yes. Instructor. This is not a pill, it's just tea. It's not like we can't drink tea when we're thirsty, right? The little fatty's expression said, Instructor, we didn't cheat. Seeing this, the short instructor and the others wanted to slap him until he fainted. Ha ha, this isn't cheating. The effect of this spirit tea is hundreds of times better than the spirit recovery elixir on the market, right? Looking at the calm expressions of the students, Zhou Danjin could not help but twitch his mouth. Alright, it's not cheating. But if you want to drink spirit tea during the next competition, haha. Qi Xianxian and the others couldn't help but shudder. He felt that there was a deeper meaning behind the instructor's unfinished words. Abba held a teacup and took a sip of tea expressionlessly. Half a tael of spirit tea per person. 1 or 2, the 5 mentors said in unison. Half tael plus 2 coins, no more. Deal. Qi Xianxian and the others looked at each other. Please, what kind of charade are they playing? After the teachers left, Qi Xianxian muttered, Jojo, isn't it too much to give each of them half a tael of spirit tea as hush money? Abba took a sip from his teacup and nodded. Yeah, I think it's a loss too. Let's just treat it as respect for the old. Alright, I'll just treat it as a form of respect for the elderly. Qi Xianxian and the others nodded in agreement. Duanmu Qing looked at Arbor and said, Xianxian and Hongwen must have told you about the Yu clan's extermination. Arbor nodded. Duanmu Qing continued, These days, we've been tracking the whereabouts of clan head Yu and his 2 sons, but we haven't been able to find them. We suspect that there's a force hiding them. Arbor laughed coldly. There's someone behind you, Batian. She wondered if it was the brother Go that the little ant she strangled to death was talking about. Where did this group of people come from? Chapter 1804. No matter where they came from, there's one thing that's definitely true. Qi Xuanxuan's face darkened as she clenched her fists. Jojo's enemy is definitely our enemy. Everyone nodded as they shared a common enemy. Arbor looked at them and felt a little emotional. Qi Xianxian smiled and said, Chow chow, when you were haggling with the teachers just now, I really didn't understand what you were doing. He didn't expect the little fellow to use the spiritual tea to shut the mentors' mouths, so that they wouldn't restrict them in the upcoming competition. To put it bluntly, be it divine beasts or holy beasts, they were all a part of their strength. Why couldn't they use it during the competition? Qi Xianxian pouted. Moreover, they wouldn't rely on their divine beasts to bully other contestants in the competition. Normally, they would go up first and summon their beasts if they couldn't do it. The mentors were thinking too much. Everyone had nothing to do for the whole day, so they simply stayed in Arbor's room, drinking tea and chatting. Thus, Arbor, who rarely had the chance to take an afternoon nap, could only accompany them to drink tea and listen to them complain about the academy. Compared to Qi Xianxian, Little Fatty and the 3 of them, the others had stayed in the academy for 2 to 3 years. After listening to Senior Lu Yu's complaints, Qi Xianxian and the other 2 found out about many strange things in the academy. For example, in order to nurture the spiritual herbs in the flaming energy peak, the mentors would occasionally come to squeeze some of the students' spirit coins. It was said that they spent a lot of money to buy some spiritual nutrient solution, and 10,000 spirit coins could only last for 2 months. Qiao Mu blinked when she heard this. What elixir nutrient solution? Who knows what kind of nutrient solution it is? Lu Yu couldn't help but complain. Don't judge the mentors by how poor they look. In fact, the academy's money isn't that little. But every month, they spend more than 10,000 spirit coins on nurturing the spiritual herbs in the flaming energy peak. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but be surprised. Then when we saw Mentor Zhou in the thunderous plains, he seemed to have gone all the way to buy cheap food. On the way back, they were so stingy. They would rather be struck by lightning all the way back on the thunderous plains than pay to take the land whale. When Qi Xianxian said this, the corners of Lu Yu, Hua Tao, and the others couldn't help but twitch. This was indeed Teacher Zhou's style of dealing with people. Oh, at that time, the teacher also said that he was going to buy food for you. If you don't return in 3 days, you will starve to death. Qi Xian sized up Duanmu Qing and the others. Is that so? I'm listening to his bragging. Hua Tao rolled his eyes. Duanmu Qing couldn't be bothered to say anything. This teacher Zhou's level of unreliability was something that no one had ever seen before. Among the teachers of the 5 spirit faculties, he was probably the most unreliable. Qi Xian was speechless. The little fatty chuckled and interrupted. Instructor Zhou and the others are doing so much for the elixir of the Flame Power Peak? Why don't we sneak over to Flaming Power Peak after we return to the academy? Do you not want to live anymore? Hua Tao rolled his eyes at him. If you go to the Flame Power Peak and are found by the mentors, I can guarantee that you won't see the sun tomorrow. The little fatty was speechless. There are hundreds and thousands of kinds of spiritual herbs in the Flame Power Peak? Aba's heart skipped a beat. How is that possible? According to Instructor Zhou, there are 4 kinds of spiritual herbs. Chapter 1805. When Aba heard this, she couldn't help but pout. It was just 4 stalks of spirit herbs, and he already spent so much effort to take care of them. If he was like her, who had hundreds and thousands of spirit herbs in the herb garden, wouldn't he have to squat in the fields and take care of them day and night without eating or drinking? No one knew what she was thinking, but seeing the slight disdain in her bright eyes, they didn't need to guess to know what she was thinking. Move, move, don't block the way. There was a commotion downstairs, but no one in the room paid much attention to it at first. Only when they heard the chaotic footsteps heading towards their room did they look at each other. Bang! With a kick, the door to Aba's room was kicked open. The pitiful half of the door was kicked to the ground. Aba's eyes turned cold, and she turned to look at the door. He saw Ko Hongjin leading a group of burly men with thick waists and round arms, blocking the door. Ko Hongjin, what are you doing here? Little fatty Ko Hongwen immediately jumped up from the stool and glared at Ko Hongjin with his red eyebrows and green eyes. Take them all down. Ko Hongjin didn't waste any time with little fatty and directly pointed 2 fingers at Aber and the others. Immediately, 20 or so burly men rushed in from behind. As if they were standard, their arms were exposed, revealing their bulging muscles. What are you doing? Little fatty shouted angrily. Ko Hongjin, you dare to mess around? I am messing around today. What can you do to me? Ko Hongjin shouted angrily. He had spent half a month with a fat pig's head. During this time, he had been ridiculed, spat, and ridiculed by many people, and he remembered all of it in his heart. The main culprit was this Ko Hongwen. He wanted this country bumpkin to regret offending the young master of the Ko family. Ko Hongjin. Little fatty was just about to pounce over when Qi Xian reached out and pulled him back. Aba waved his hand, and more than 20 bodies securing talismans flew in front of the crowd. Without any explanation, they froze the 20 or so burly men who were trying to break through the door. Ko Hongjin shuddered and hurriedly retreated. Just as he was about to exit the door, he felt a pain in the back of his head and fell to the ground. Ko Hongjin felt a splitting pain in the back of his head. He fell to the ground and rolled back and forth. He forced himself to look back, but there was no one in the corridor outside the door. Ko Hongjin's heart trembled in fear, and he began to panic for no reason. The strange object that he had felt earlier was clearly due to someone throwing something at the back of his head from outside the corridor. How could he not see anyone in the blink of an eye? Duanmu Qing's eyes flickered, and his gaze landed on Aba. He had been standing beside her the whole time. Just now, when Aba's eyes flashed red, he saw it very clearly. This was a special ability? Aba kicked away a person blocking the way and walked over to Ko Hongjin, who was rolling on the ground. She pursed her lips in displeasure. Didn't you hit me enough last time? Why was this person like a fly, buzzing around everywhere he went? Ko Hongjin glared at her angrily, hugging his head and rolling back and forth. You dare to touch me? You dare to hit me again this time? I will make sure that damn fatty's parents die a horrible death. Aba's gaze sharpened. The little fatty cried out in surprise and rushed over. He kicked Ko Hongwen hard. You caught my parents. Chapter 1806. Thinking about how his parents, who had stayed in Xiaoping town for their entire lives, had fallen into Ko Hongzhen's hands, and who knew what kind of torture they had gone through. Little Fatty's heart was filled with anger. He picked up Ko Hongzhen, who was lying on the ground, and without any explanation, slammed his fists into his mouth. "Speak! Where did you take my parents?" "Ow, ah!" Ko Hongzhen didn't expect that he would be beaten up by the little fatty, even though he had brought so many people to look for trouble. "Your useless parents. I just need to torture them a little and they'll be dead." "Ow!" As soon as Ko Hongzhen finished speaking, he suddenly felt a silver needle drop into his arm. Instantly, he felt as if the pain in his entire body had been magnified countless times. From his blood vessels to his tiny pores, they were all screaming the word pain at him. Ko Hongzhen couldn't help but roll back and forth on the ground. He was in so much pain. So much pain. Auber looked coldly at the man who was rolling back and forth on the ground like a dead dog. He stepped forward and kicked him hard in the waist. "Where are they?" In our Ko family's dungeon." Little Fatty didn't say anything else and rushed out of the door. A few teachers had just arrived at the door. They were stunned for a moment and asked, "What happened?" Previously, after they had taken the spirit tea, they had returned to their rooms to cultivate for a while. They wanted to take advantage of the spirit tea to cultivate for a while, but they didn't expect that in such a short time, something would happen again. Little Fatty's parents have been detained in the dungeon by the Ko family. Qi Xianxian said anxiously, "We have to go with him to take a look." "You guys stay here." Teacher Wei Wei spoke out to stop everyone. "We'll go take a look. You guys stay here and don't cause any more trouble." Auber saw Wei Wei step forward to take Ko Hongzhen away and kicked him hard in the stomach. That guy opened his mouth in pain, but he only felt a chill in his throat, as if something had slipped down his throat. Ko Hongzhen wasn't an idiot. He immediately knew that something was wrong. What kind of poison did Auber give him? Ko Hongzhen desperately wanted to vomit out the poison that he had swallowed. Unfortunately, the poison dissolved in his mouth. Even if he vomited until the middle of the night, he would not be able to get even half of it out. Wei Wei was stunned for a moment, but he didn't say anything. He picked up Ko Hongzhen and chased after the little fatty with the other 4 mentors. As for the rest of the people who stayed in the room, they couldn't help but feel worried. With a teacher leading them to the Ko clan, it shouldn't be too dangerous, right? Qi Xianxian muttered. Everyone's expression was somewhat unsightly. They didn't expect that Ko Hongzhen was such a stupid person. He captured Ko Hongwen's parents to threaten him? Originally, it was just a conflict between brothers. Now, it had escalated into a life-and-death feud. "Jojo, what did you feed Ko Hongzhen just now?" "100 herbs carefree powder," Qiao Mu stated apathetically. "Poison?" The name didn't sound like a poison. Auber shook his head. Everyone's expression was slightly stunned. They thought that in that kind of situation, Auber would poison Ko Hongzhen in a fit of anger. They didn't expect that he didn't. Duanmu Qing raised his eyebrows slightly and asked softly, "What's the effect of the poison?" He didn't believe that Jojo would let Ko Hongzhen off so easily after provoking him time and time again. Chapter 1807. Even though the name of the medicine sounded pretty good, Duanmu Qing was very clear that it was definitely not a good medicine. Auber looked out the window indifferently and said softly, "An idiot should act like an idiot. Isn't that right?" Duanmu Qing raised his eyebrows and immediately understood what Auber meant. Qi Xianxian looked at the two in confusion and couldn't help but lean closer to Auber and ask, "What do you mean?" "What I mean is that young Master Ko Hongzhen can only be an idiot for the rest of his life." Qi Xianxian nodded blankly. Suddenly, she seemed to have understood something and her eyes widened. So, the 100 herbs freedom powder that sounded so simple was actually a medicine that could turn a person into an idiot? Heavens! Qi Xianxian immediately felt her entire body tremble. Ko Hongzhen had turned into an idiot. The Ko family head must be busy looking for a doctor to treat his condition. For the time being, he probably couldn't find the time to cause trouble for them. Arbor and the others were sitting in the room and talking when they heard a few light knocks on the door. Arbor raised her head and frowned. Xian, help me call the shopkeeper over. Her room's door had been broken by that damned Ko Hongzhen. She had to ask the shopkeeper to help her change to another room. Okay. Qi Xian ran out and exchanged glances with Steward Tang, who was standing by the door. Miss Chow. Steward Tang bowed respectfully to Arbor. What are you doing here? Arbor asked indifferently. This lowly one has been ordered by my young master to come and visit Miss Chow. Steward Tang said respectfully. Now that you've visited, shouldn't you be leaving? Hua Tao said jokingly. Steward Tang's expression revealed traces of awkwardness. This lowly one will leave after delivering the gifts. With that, Steward Tang turned around and ordered people to bring a row of boxes of various shapes and sizes to Arbor. Steward Tang bowed respectfully and said, Miss Chow, this old servant will leave now. Arbor nodded calmly. When Manager Tang was about to leave the room, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around to say, Young Master also said that if Miss Chow needs any help, you can go to Chen Luo's underground battle arena to look for him at any time. Of course, if Young Master isn't here, this old servant can still help young lady. Arbor watched him leave with a trace of doubt in his eyes. Was there something wrong with this Ding Ting Ding? Why was he being so nice to her for no reason? It really made people feel uncomfortable. Arbor raised his head and saw Qi Xian walk in with the innkeeper behind her. He said, Innkeeper, change my room tonight. It's a girl. On the other side, Hua Tao had long since lost his composure. He ran forward and rummaged through the gift boxes of different sizes. The gift boxes were piled up on the table, and most of them were spirit pills and miraculous medicines. Every item looked extremely precious, and he couldn't help but be speechless. Such a large sum of money was not something that a simple wealthy family could afford. It could be seen how wealthy and powerful this young Master Ding of Chen Luo's underground battle arena was. Ah, that's right. Jojo, I forgot to tell you that we have already received the prize money. Qi Xian immediately beamed with joy when she mentioned this. Tomorrow, go to a random shop and ask the innkeeper to help me deposit the 2,800,000 spirit coins in my spirit coin card with you. I have 5 million spirit coins. It should be enough to spend. You can split the prize money. Arbor waved his hand and said. Chapter 1808. Qi Xian was immediately moved to tears. She held Arbor's hand and rubbed it. Jojo. Arbor looked at her speechlessly. He patted her head and said with a serious face, Don't be so stingy in the future. At this moment, Chow Mu's small team was filled with people of considerable wealth. Each of them had at least a few 100,000 spirit coins on them. The few of them chatted for a while and looked at the sky outside. They couldn't help but feel worried. The mentors had followed Ko Hongwen to the Ko family for about 4 hours. They still hadn't returned. They didn't know if something had happened to them. Why didn't Mentor Wei Wei and the others let us go and help? Qi Xian muttered, The Ko family has so many people. They wouldn't attack them, right? With the mentors' cultivations, it shouldn't be a big problem. They were all great spirit masters. It should be easy for them to deal with a bunch of weak Ko family disciples. Then why aren't they back yet? Qi Xian said worriedly, I wonder how Little Fatty's parents are. Jojo. Little Fatty's voice suddenly came from the corridor. The shopkeeper led the group of people to her room. The little Fatty was the first to step through the door, carrying an old lady covered in wounds in his arms. Quickly put her on the bed. Arbor immediately stood up and said. Little Fatty placed his mother on the couch by the window. He rubbed his hands uneasily and said, Chow, my mother will be fine, okay? Arbor bent down and treated the wounds and blood on Ko Hongwen's mother's body. Superficial wounds are easy to treat. Auntie was poisoned. However, the poison used by the Ko family wasn't that strong. Arbor took out a small bottle of medicine and poured it down Ko Hongwen's mother's throat. He then turned around and threw the dirty cloth into the basin. This injury was caused by Ko Hongjin? Ko Hongwen's eyes were red. He gritted his teeth and nodded. However, that brat Ko Hongjin didn't end well either. I personally chopped off one of his arms. Let him be a cripple from now on. When he left, he heard the Ko family's patriarch howling as he hugged his precious son. Yong Kai didn't know what kind of shock he had received. However, Ko Hongjin only had himself to blame for all of this. Abba nodded and looked at him approvingly. That's right. You don't have to be polite to your enemies. Otherwise, only their own people would be hurt. After treating Ko Hongwen's mother's injuries, Abba turned his head and his gaze landed on a skinny little old man beside Instructor Wei Wei. Uncle Ko is also injured. Come and clean your wounds. Thank you, thank you. Ko Hongwen's old father hurriedly thanked him and walked to Abba's side and sat down. After cleaning Uncle Ko's wound as well and applying medicine, Xiao Mu then leisurely washed her hands before turning to look at Ko Hongwen. What happened? Speak. Ko Hongwen clenched his fists angrily. When we rushed there, the old bastards of the Ko family refused to admit that they had captured my parents. The instructors mediated with the Ko family for a while, but when they couldn't get through, they took action. By the time we found my parents in the dungeon, they were already like this. I told you not to talk nonsense with them. Abba snapped. They attacked without talking nonsense. They were already back. Chapter 1809. See, we almost missed dinner. Abba glanced at everyone unhappily. Qi Xuanxuan's eyes lit up when she heard this. Jojo's words meant that he had something good to eat for them. Qi Xianxian was already used to thinking that Jojo had a lot of good food around him. She had long forgotten about Abba's unreasonable existence. Since she saw Jojo take out good food, she would just take it and enjoy it. Jojo, are we having a big meal today? Abba glanced at everyone in the room expressionlessly and nodded reluctantly. Then, he looked at Zhou Danjin and the other teachers. Zhou Danjin hurriedly chuckled and said, Little girl, we're all teachers and students of a top academy. We should definitely enjoy good times and bad times together. What he meant was that they were definitely going to freeload on this dinner. Humph. Xiao Mu grumpily harumphed before turning to tell the little fatty, Auntie Ko can only take some liquid food. After 15 minutes, feed this bowl of congee to her. Ko Hongwen took it and nodded solemnly. You guys go ahead and eat. I'll take care of my parents. Everyone knew that Ko Hongwen had something to say to his parents, so they nodded and tactfully left the room. The group walked into Qi Xuanxuan's room. Once they entered the room, they squeezed into a square table and sat down. Abba began to bring out plate after plate of piping hot dishes under everyone's shocked gazes. Braised pork shoulder, stewed fish head, 8 side dishes, 4 desserts, and a big pot of steaming mutton soup. It was unimaginably sumptuous. Everyone thought that she had brought out all the food in her inner world. They did not know that she had an all-purpose food box with all kinds of delicacies in it. Let's eat. Abba poked the stunned Qi Xianxian. You're amazing, Jojo. You've prepared so many dishes in such a short time. These. I didn't burn them. Just as she was about to say those words, Qi Xianxian patted her shoulder and said with a smile, You really are my omnipotent Jojo. Abba was at a loss for words. He looked at them hesitantly. Zhou Dan picked up her chopsticks and started eating. Half of the braised pork shoulder went down her stomach, and she was speechless. My God, how long has it been since I ate so much fish and meat? This was not bad at all. How rare. The little girl had actually prepared a sumptuous feast for them. Cough, this could also be considered as respecting his teacher. Wei Wei calmly reached out his chopsticks to pick up the food. He looked much calmer than Instructor Zhou, but the speed at which he picked up the food was not any slower than Instructor Zhou. After everyone had eaten their fill, they didn't forget to leave some food for the little fatty. Everyone ate until their stomachs were round and full. After the meal, Wei Wei told the mentors about their plans to return to the lava mountains the next morning. Regarding this, the others did not have any objections. However, the little fatty said goodbye to them for the time being. He had to send his parents back to the Ko family in Xiaoping town first. The Ko family won't find trouble with them again? Abba frowned and asked. If they dare, I'll chop off their limbs. Zhou Dan snorted. What kind of hero are they to make a move on two ordinary people who don't even have the strength to truss up a chicken? If the Ko family still wants that little bit of reputation, they won't be so ruthless. Abba nodded in agreement. Chapter 18:10. On the other side, Prince Mo, who had been wandering in the starry sky for more than 20 days, was sitting under the twinkling stars. Occasionally, he would stand up and use his sword Qi to draw 2 strokes under the starry sky. At first glance, it looked very strange. However, if one took a closer look, they would find that Prince Mo's sword Qi was very regular. The pebbles on the ground were all divided into 9 grades by his sword Qi. Very quickly, these broken pebbles floated around him, and quickly circled around a few stars in the air. Whoosh! One of the stars lit up for a moment, then jumped out from the other stars and slid to the side. On the ground that was illuminated by the star, a small circle of light suddenly appeared. If one didn't look carefully, they would never see the jade talisman array flying around the circle of light. Each of these jade talismans was only the size of a star. They were mixed in the starry sky, so it was impossible to see them clearly. It was really difficult to distinguish them when they were mixed in with the stars. However, with Prince Mo's current eyesight, he could still see the difference between the two after careful observation. This astrolabe was like a natural array. It included 81 small arrays. Only by finding the only way out of this array could one walk out of this starry sky. For this reason, Prince Mo, who only knew a little about arrays, spent more than 20 days here before he found something. As for the others, they were not in the scope of his control. Mo Lien stepped into the jade talisman array. He felt that his body seemed to be gently pulled by a force, and then suddenly disappeared into the night sky. When he opened his eyes again, he saw the little Tai Sui standing aside and staring at him with a sullen face. Stupid! What took you so long? The little Tai Sui said grumpily. The others have come out. They're all waiting for you. Oh. Prince Mo raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the little Tai Sui. Who came out? These lighthouse keepers didn't need to crack the astrolabe formation at all. Unlike him, who had to calculate the location of the life gate again and again. If he made a mistake, he would have to start all over again. Humph. Little Tai Sui coughed uncomfortably. I don't want to waste my breath on you. Come with me. After saying that, he lifted his short legs and walked forward valiantly. The two stopped in front of an arched door. Little Tai Sui pointed at the door and pursed its lips. Theoretically speaking, as long as you shatter this door, we can all be teleported out. It does sound quite simple, Mo Lien said with a faint smile as she glanced at little Tai Sui. What about in reality? It's actually a bit difficult. Little Tai Sui snorted. Take me for example. I once used all my strength to hit this door, but unfortunately, it was useless. How did that saint beast get out? How would I know? Little Tai Sui was instantly enraged. What's the point of saying so much? Why don't you give it a try? Mo Lien swept a glance at the taut little Tai Sui before taking 2 steps forward and unhurriedly pushing the stars on the door. That's right, this door was inlaid with tens of thousands of stars, making it appear as if there was no pattern to them at all. Humph! Little Tai Sui sneered. Do you think you can open the door just by randomly touching the stars on this door? Don't blame me for not warning you. Let me tell you. Chapter 18:11. What are you trying to say to me? Mo Lien turned to look at little Tai Sui. At this moment, the door behind him had already been pushed open by a burst of power, and it suddenly opened completely in front of them. Little Tai Sui was momentarily dumbstruck. He had wanted to tell her that if she messed with the stars on this door, she would end up as miserable as he was. This was because she had also messed with this door in the beginning, and she had done so blindly. Initially, she would have been able to push the door open slightly with all of her strength, but who would have thought that her careless movements would cause the door to become several million kilograms heavier? It was only later that he learned that if he messed with the stars on the door, it would cause the door to become even heavier. Kiki was this Crown Prince Amo, so how did he know? Furthermore, the speed at which he cracked the restriction came a little too quickly, right? Little Tai Sui's mouth gaped open, and it finally couldn't help but ask, "How did you know how the stars on this door were originally arranged?" "You didn't walk through the starry sky realm?" "I did walk through it." Little Tai Sui pursed its lips. "But so what? What the hell does walking through the starry sky realm mean? TSK, this person is really ridiculous. You just have to walk through the starry sky realm." Prince Amo turned to him with a faint smile. Little Tai Sui turned its head in disapproval. Then, as if a thought had occurred to it, its eyes abruptly widened. "You're not trying to tell me that the arrangement of the starry sky realm is exactly the same as the stars on this door, right?" Emo Lien nodded. "That's exactly the case." A surprised expression immediately appeared on Little Tai Sui's face, and it stared at Emo Lien as if she were a monster. "You don't tell me you remember the arrangement of all the stars under the starry sky realm? What else do you think I do?" Emo Lien glanced at Little Tai Sui with an indifferent expression. Little Tai Sui was instantly rendered speechless. What else could it say? Wasn't this person's memory a little too exaggerated? It wasn't like he hadn't been to the starry sky before. The moment he walked in, the sky was filled with stars. They all looked the same, and he couldn't tell who was who. To be able to memorize the original positions of all the stars in such a short period of time, this memory was simply unprecedented. Emo Lien glanced at Little Tai Sui, whose head was drooping due to the blow, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She reached out to touch his head and said in a coaxing tone, "If you want to go out, you know what to do, right?" Little Tai Sui almost jumped up. Its face flushed red as it angrily said, Who wants to go out? Humph. I never thought about it." "Oh, then we'll part ways here." Emo Lien waved at him, then turned around and saw the Luo brothers running over. She nodded and said, "Let's go." Little Tai Sui couldn't help but panic at the sight of Enlin abandoning it without any hesitation. There was a hint of anger in its voice as it yelled, "Wait! This stinking brat, not only did he have the guts to stroke his head, he even dared to leave him behind without saying a word? I'll go out with you." The Luo brothers immediately expressed their boundless welcome. "Little Tai Sui, it would be great if you could join us. Remember to be more polite to our boss in the future. Let's talk outside." Emo Lien's body flashed, and she was the first to emerge from the starry gate. Chapter 1812. Wait for me. A feeble voice came from behind them. Emo Lien turned around and saw the disheveled Dao Wuji stumbling over. That guy's face was ashen, and he was in a sorry state. Not only was his body covered in a sticky green substance, but his hair was also disheveled. He looked as if he had been ravaged thousands of times. Behind him, a huge morning glory opened its mouth, revealing 2 rows of jagged steel teeth. It wriggled its branches as it chased after the unlucky Dao Wuji. Boundless Blade stumbled and stumbled as he ran. He scrambled to Emo Lien and subsequently hugged his thigh as he screamed repeatedly, eldest brother, save me, eldest brother." Everyone looked at him speechlessly. How could this old fellow call him big brother when he opened his mouth? You're an old man over 100 years old. No matter how young your face is, calling a young man in his early 20s big brother is too shameless. However, Dao Wuji didn't care. He hurriedly hugged Emo Lien's leg and screamed, "Big brother, take me out of here with you, big brother." Little Tai Sui kicked him in the butt. "Get up." He was crying and yelling. He had lost all his face. Emolienne narrowed her eyes and looked at the huge morning glory that was wriggling its branches and leaves. She suddenly raised a wisp of holy flame. The black flame suddenly hovered above the huge morning glory's head. It didn't fall for a long time, but it exuded an extremely terrifying holy pressure. "Surrender or die?" Emolienne asked coldly. "Jigu." The huge morning glory spat out a few mouthfuls of mucus, revealing a mouthful of small steel teeth. However, before it could react, the black flame above its head began to burn fiercely, as if it would burn its branches in the next second. "Jigu." The huge morning glory's branches and leaves shrank, suddenly hiding its small steel teeth. She twisted the oversized morning glory and twirled its stem. Suddenly, it shrank and shrank into a fist-sized morning glory. Swaying its petals and leaves, it swayed and wriggled towards Emolienne. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. A wise man submits to circumstances. The man controlling the holy flame appeared to be very terrifying, so it decided that it would be better to surrender. Emolienne stretched out her hand, her slender fingers slightly open. The little morning glory jumped into his palm and twisted its small body to please him. "What do you want this man-eating flower for?" Little Tai Sui glanced at it with disdain. Limitless Blade, who was covered in the green mucus, also shouted, "Other than spitting venom, it's useless." Emolienne glanced at the two of them. "What do people like you who don't have wives know?" Jojo would definitely like it. If his wife thought the man-eating flower was ugly, then he could use it to make medicine. If the man-eating flower knew what the crown prince was thinking right now, it would definitely bite him to death. How could he have the face to say that he wanted a venomous flower that was close to the sage level to be used as medicine? After saying this, the crown prince ignored little Tai Sui. He threw the man-eating flower onto his shoulder, turned around, and left. Little Tai Sui glanced at Ma Shurchen. "What does that brat mean?" "He means you don't have a wife." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at little Tai Sui sympathetically. "However, with your small body, it's impossible for you to have a wife." Little Tai Sui's face turned green. Wife, so what if you have a wife?" Chapter 1813. When he got out, he was going to kill that brat's wife. He was going to King show off his wife in front of him all day long. When you don't have a wife, let's see how you're going to continue showing off. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal tossed little Tai Sui's resentful expression to the back of his mind. He turned around and left with Emolienne. After leaving the Tower of Punishment, they all floated in the air. This was an unknown space, and no passageway had appeared for the time being. Their surroundings were pitch black, and they couldn't tell where they were. Little Tai Sui snorted. "Although you pass the Tower of Punishment and can come out, that doesn't mean the Heavenly Tao will let you go so easily. A freak like you shouldn't even exist in this world." Emolienne waved her hand, and a helmet-like thing slowly appeared on her head. Little Tai Sui stared at her in confusion. "What is this thing?" As soon as he said that, a thunderclap boomed in the air. Before anyone could react, a bolt of lightning fell from above their heads, crashing into them with a rumble. PFFF. Dao Wuji spat out a mouthful of black ash. His entire face was charred black by the lightning. "Why did you strike me?" Dao Wuji pointed to the sky and cursed innocently. Then, another bolt of lightning struck him, and he fell to the ground with a thump. All of the tower guards who had followed Crown Prince Mo out of the Pagoda of Punishment had suffered a calamity, including little Tai Sui, the Luo brothers, Thin Monk, the Ginkgo Fairy, and the Peony Fairy. They were all unlucky. Bolts of lightning struck everyone as if they didn't cost anything. The heavenly Tao was enraged, as if it wanted to strike these traitors to death. Meanwhile, Crown Prince Mo stood on the side with a leisurely expression. The helmet he was wearing just so happened to perfectly block the thunderclap. Emolienne sighed softly and shook his head as he watched those people hopping about in the midst of the thunderclap. What a pitiful bunch. Didn't they know the heavenly Tao would go crazy? So many people were teleported out of the Tower of Punishment all at once. How could they not be struck? TSK, they didn't even have any protective equipment, yet they dared to follow him out of the Tower of Punishment. Serves them right for being unlucky. Prince Emo stretched out his hand and brushed his robe, which did not have a single wrinkle, before he turned around and walked into the depths of the void expressionlessly. He didn't know which unknown space this was, but as long as he found the passage to Shuntian Prefecture, he should be able to see his wife very soon. However, the Crown Prince frowned slightly. The passageway might not be easy to find. Crown Prince's section break. As for the people from Arba, after they returned to the Lava Mountains, their days in the top academy slowly quieted down. Ever since they returned to their own academy, not long after that, they didn't know if that group of deceitful mentors had found their conscience, but they actually brought a few workers to repair their mud house. Of course, the repairs wouldn't be very good, but compared to the previous mud house, the small dormitory now had a roof over its head, and it had all the necessary tools for daily life. The mentors of the 5 spiritual schools took turns to personally guide them on how to use their spiritual power in battle, and how to make the most of their spiritual power. Auber stepped up his cultivation and spent his free time refining pills and drawing talismans. He calmly and nervously passed 3 months. On this day, when the 8 of them were sparring in pairs, the elusive Principal Yun Fei, who had disappeared for more than 3 months, appeared and brought them news about the Academy's ranking competition. Chapter 1814. There's a big change in the Academy ranking tournament this time. The large number of preliminaries have been cancelled. Yun Fiang said calmly, the top 3 academies in the last 6 prefectures ranking tournament, Shuntian Prefecture's Sunlight Academy, Ani Prefecture's Jiaqing Academy, and Poland Prefecture's Heavenly Bestowing Academy, have unanimously finalized a unified plan. They've decided to have all the participating students head to Poland Prefecture's Dai Zong Mountain to jointly eliminate a zombie base. This corpse puppet base was gradually formed 3 years ago. Because it wasn't cleaned up immediately, there are now corpse puppets of all sizes gathered here. I'm afraid there are hundreds of thousands of them. As soon as Yun Fei finished speaking, the expressions of Qi Xianxian and the others changed. But for some reason, the zombies in this zombie base on Dai Zong Mountain didn't run out. Instead, they're peacefully stationed in the mountain. Yun Fiang's voice paused slightly. The Poland Prefecture's Prefecture Lord contributed 1 million spirit coins to invite the major forces of the 6 prefectures to work together to clear this zombie base. Yun Fiang smiled faintly. The Heavenly Bestowing Academy has proposed that the preliminaries of this academy ranking tournament be changed to a zombie clearing competition. The more zombies cleared within 15 days, the higher the chance of advancing to the semi-finals. When Qi Xianxian and the others heard this, they were immediately displeased. Oh, it's obvious that their prefecture lord paid 1 million spirit coins to find someone to clean up the corpse puppets. That Heavenly Bestow Academy gave the job to us students. Then are they going to pay up? Pay, of course they're going to pay. Yun Fiang nodded slightly. You can rest assured that even if the Poland Prefecture doesn't pay up, the instructors will get it back for you. He made it sound as if they were relying on these 2 to clear the fees to survive. Aba raised her hand to rub her small nose. She turned to leave expressionlessly, but was stopped by Yun Fiang. Jojo, come with me. Aba followed Yun Fiang out of the training ground and followed him all the way to the cliff of the academy peak. The 2 of them stood with one in front and one behind. Yun Fiang turned to look at her and asked with a smile, "How have you been in the academy for the past 3 months?" Aba nodded slightly, indicating that she had been doing okay. Yun Fiang glanced at her and couldn't help but smile. "Do you have any plans?" Aba's face was calm. "I want to participate in the academy ranking competition." Not only did he have to participate, but he also had to strive for a good result and obtain the qualifications to go to Brinthit Island. Then, let's see if the spirit energy in the island's spirit domain is enough for Chiu Chiu to absorb. If it's not enough, I'll think of something else. She wanted Chiu Chiu to get better. For the sake of Chiu Chiu, she was willing to invade a base of 100,000 zombies. So what if she had to invade a base of 1 million zombies? Yun Zong laughed and nodded. "What I mean is, I recently heard that you're Dean." The fire instructor who rushed over suddenly interrupted Yun Fiang and bowed. Dean, Master Wu Yen is back. Oh please, Yun Fe said quickly. He turned to Arbor and nodded. You can go first. Arbor nodded. Knowing that Yun Fei had something to do, he quickly left. In truth, Yun Fiang previously wanted to tell her that he had recently heard that some of her senior sisters from the Holy Water sect were currently in Poland Manor. Did she plan on meeting them? Unfortunately, he was diverted before he could finish speaking. Yun Fiang hastily returned to his cloud mooring cliff and immediately saw the white-haired elderly man sitting at the small table in front of the house quietly drinking tea. Chapter 1815. Great Master Wu Yen. Yun Shuang saluted the old man. The old man stood up with a faint smile and returned the salute. Principal Yun, it's been about half a year since we last met. I heard that this year, the top academy took in a few students with decent aptitudes. I really must congratulate you, Principal Yun. Yun Shuang waved his hand with a smile. They're just a bunch of worrying children. Great Master, I wonder if you found the guiding herb you need this time? The old man sighed. After I heard about the bloodshed vermilion fruit, I traveled day and night to get there. Unfortunately, I didn't even see a single leaf. Yun Shuang sighed. That pill, does it not need the bloodshed vermilion fruit as the guiding herb? Can it be replaced with something else? Something else. Great Master Wu Yen sighed. Something else is even harder to get. For example, the longevity fruit, or the phoenix blood shock pearl. If you have one of these things, then the effect would be better. But the problem is, where do you find these things? Yun Shuang was speechless. After a while, he nodded slightly. Great Master, please go to Flaming Power Peak and take a look at the 4 spirit herbs. Okay. Great Master Wu Yen went out to search for the holy herb and only just returned. He was really worried about the 4 spirit herbs. When Arbor returned to the training grounds, he happened to see Zhou Danjin giving an impassioned speech. Students, what's in front of you is an opportunity. Let our academy soar into the sky, or continue to remain silent, it's all in your hands. Poland Manor is quite a distance away from Shuntian Manor. It'll take 7 to 10 days by boat. Therefore, our teachers have unanimously decided to depart in 3 days. Students, go and prepare yourselves. The sea is full of dangers. Everyone bring your own food and water. After Arbor finished listening to Zhou Dongjin's rambling, he dispersed and returned to his room. Qi Xianxian held onto Arbor's hand and asked, Jojo, what do you think the Academy's planning for the ranking competition? Why do we have to go to Poland Manor to clean up the corpse puppets and do such dangerous work? What else could they be planning? Do you want to keep the 1,000,000 spirit coins for yourself? Mata pursed his lips and said, by doing this, not only will they get a large number of students to work for them, but they will also save a sum of money. Isn't that great? After those zombies are cleared out by our students, they can go into the mountains to dig for herbs and hunt for beasts. Isn't that killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Arbor looked calm. Then let's think of a way to loot all the supplies in Daizong Mountain. Not even a single hair was left for them. Qi Xianxian and the others looked at each other. They really wanted to ask Jojo where he got his confidence from. They didn't even know how big that mountain was, and they still wanted to rob the entire mountain. It felt a little funny. Duanmu Qing coughed softly and said, actually, I think what Jojo said is feasible. Jojo has a summoning talisman. He can summon. Arbor's eyes lit up. He hurriedly took out a few summoning talismans from his pocket and gave one to everyone. All of you, come and summon. See what you can summon. Qi Xianxian immediately became excited. We can summon another beast? Arbor nodded. We should be able to. Speaking of which, she hadn't summoned for a long time. Before she advanced to the yellow rank Great Talisman Master Realm, Arbor suspected that she wouldn't be able to summon a beast. While thinking, Qi Xuanxuan's hand released a burst of light. Chapter 18:16. Roar. Roar. Roars rang out incessantly. Qi Xianxian, Little Fatty, Duanmu Qing, Mata, Huatao, Luyu, and Zhang Shaoxin all summoned 7 tigers, leopards, bears, and lions of different shapes and sizes. The mighty ferocious beasts surrounded everyone in a circle. "Oh my God, mine is just a tyrant tiger, right? It's so robust and tall. Oh my God." Little Fatty's fussy voice attracted a glance from Abba. "Look at my polar bear, it's too adorable." Abba rubbed the belly of Qi Xuanxuan's polar bear and sighed with a complicated expression. Qi Xianxian happily rubbed the big bear. "Heavens, Chow Chow, I really did summon another bear. This summoning talisman is truly miraculous and effective. And look, its level doesn't seem to be low either." Chow Mu peeked at her with her small eyes. Humph. Qi Xianxian and the others were perplexed when they saw the little stoic turn around and leave in a huff. "What's wrong with Jojo?" Qi Xianxian turned to look at Little Fatty. The latter shook his head in bewilderment. "I don't know." This temperamental little fellow was unhappy all of a sudden. Shouldn't he be happy that they summoned so many ferocious beasts? It's probably because the ferocious beasts we summoned don't conform to Jojo's aesthetic standards? Mata speculated. "That can't be. I think Jojo quite likes my polar bear. She touched it just now. MHM. Abba turned a deaf ear to the string of voices behind him. However, after walking a few steps, he seemed to recall something and turned back. With a stoic face, he expressionlessly threw them several storage talismans. It wasn't good to let so many beasts swagger around them. It would be very stressful for passers-by to see, all right? "Jojo, put our summoned beasts into the storage talismans?" Abba clearly snorted disdainfully at Mata's idiotic question. Humph. She snorted at him again. Without saying a word, she turned around and left with a flick of her sleeve. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Mata coughed lightly and asked, "Have you noticed that Jojo's mood has suddenly changed?" "Do you know why?" "Didn't I notice it just now?" Qi Xianxian rolled her eyes at him. "You don't know why Jojo is in a bad mood, but do you think I do? No, we have to pay her a visit. Look, Jojo has given us so many good things, such as summoning charms and storage charms. We have to show her some appreciation." "What are you trying to say?" "I plan to bring my tyrant tiger over and show it to her," Little Fatty said with a serious face. Mainly, he wanted to go over and ask the little stoic, how long could this tyrant tiger exist? Would the summoned beasts disappear before they could reach Dai Zong Mountain? When Qi Xianxian heard what he said, she immediately glared at him grumpily. "Are you stupid? Didn't you see Jojo's disdainful gaze toward your tyrant tiger just now?" "Ah." Qi Xianxian analyzed. It must be because the tyrant tiger is ugly and is an eyesore to Jojo, so she looks very unhappy. Everyone looked at each other and then said in unison, "How is it ugly?" Duanmu Qing broke into laughter speechlessly. "I think Jojo is more envious of us summoning so many tigers, leopards, bears, and lions." Chapter 18:17. Didn't you guys notice? Duanmu Qing coughed lightly. Jojo's conflicted expression earlier was clearly like, "You're saying sour grapes when you can't eat them." Mata immediately said. Qi Xianxian directly slapped the back of his head. "Nonsense. Forget it, you also feel that way." Mata rubbed the back of his head and glanced irritably at Qi Xianxian. "Humph. I can't be bothered to argue with you guys. How could Jojo possibly envy us? Look at how many beasts she has." Qi Xianxian suddenly couldn't continue. "You guys noticed, right?" Mata rubbed his chin and chuckled mischievously. "The beasts around the little stoic are all pocket-sized. So cute. How can they be like the one I summoned? Bah, the ones around Jojo are all divine beasts and holy beasts." However, holy beasts were also cute. "Can you tell?" Look at how much Jojo likes that big snow leopard. Who knows, every time Jojo summons it, he can't summon anything good. Mata, the king of analysis, said with a chuckle. You. Qi Xian pointed at him. After a while, she suddenly burst into laughter. I think your analysis is pretty good. Everyone couldn't resist roaring with laughter. Mata rolled his eyes at them. If you want to live a good life, remember what I said. You absolutely can't show off your beasts in front of Jojo in the future. MHM. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't summon my big bear. Qi Xian joyfully stroked the storage talisman in her hand, feeling inexplicably happy. A storage talisman wasn't something that just any cat or dog could possess. Moreover, she saw that the storage talisman Jojo gave her had an especially large space. After storing her polar bear inside, there was still a lot of space and could store many resources. Everyone happily returned to their rooms and slept until dawn. When they woke up, their moods were especially good. When Qi Xian pushed open the door to her room, she saw Jojo walking past her expressionlessly after washing his face. Ciao. Qi Xian stretched out her small hand, but was completely ignored by Qiao Mu. Qi Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she watched the little stoic haughtily walk past her without even looking at her out of the corner of her eye. It was all his fault. He had summoned a bear that Jojo didn't have. Jojo was jealous. Cough. Qi Xian approached Auber with a fawning look on her face. She was still holding a basin in her hands. She had only wiped half of her face when she smiled and said, Jojo, let's talk about something. The little fellow snorted and completely ignored Qi Xian's hot face. He walked past her expressionlessly. Qi Xian. He turned around and saw little Fatty and Duanmu Qing walking over with helpless expressions. Qi Xian casually wiped her small face and hurriedly placed the basin on the ground. She looked at Duanmu Qing speechlessly and said, Didn't talk to you guys? You didn't see it yourself just now. Little Fatty rolled his eyes and said, She completely ignored us. Pfft. Qi Xian couldn't help but want to laugh. Why did it feel so funny when this little stoic was willful? You're still laughing. Fatty glared at her and said, Be more serious. You can't laugh anymore. I'm telling you, this matter looks quite serious right now. I'm not laughing. Qi Xian forcefully covered her small mouth with her hand and then sputtered with laughter. Chapter 18:18. 3 days later, the instructors were waiting for the students to arrive at the academy's peak early in the morning. Didn't we agree to set off at 7 in the morning? What time is it now? Why isn't anyone here yet? Zhou Danjin frowned. Just like I said, you were too lax with them previously. Instructor Wei Wei said indifferently, What do you mean by the competition is about to start and giving you 3 days off? What do you mean by everyone has been working hard? He, weren't you the one who said that? Zhou Danjin was speechless. I saw that the students were dog-tired and thought that if they didn't rest well, they wouldn't be able to train in a better state. Zhou Danjin continued, Furthermore, after 3 months of training, these 3 days don't matter anymore. Instructor Wei Wei laughed coldly. What do you think? If they don't hurry up and train and relax, look, they're all gone. They're here. Seeing that the two instructors were about to quarrel again, another instructor hurriedly interrupted. Indeed, Duanmu Qing, Qi Xian and a few others arrived late and arrived in front of the instructors in a relaxed manner. Why are you guys only here now? Zhou Danjin couldn't keep his face. We agreed to meet at 7 in the morning. How are we going to set off at this time? How are we going to get there? Of course we're going to walk with our 2 legs. Zhou Danjin said snappily. Doesn't the academy have flying mystical beasts? Qi Xian asked curiously, Aren't they going to bring us to the pier? Humph, you wish. Zhou Danjin immediately retorted, Of course we're going to rely on ourselves. The instructor's plan is, everyone will rely on their own abilities to get there. The prerequisite is that you can't use flying mystical beasts. What about Arba? She's going to summon her ancient phoenix again? I'm telling you that it's not allowed. Wei Wei snorted with a sullen face. Alright, everyone is here. We can set off now. If you guys continue to dawdle like this, I don't know if you'll be able to reach the pier by today. You want us to descend the peak and fly to the pier by ourselves? Qi Xianxian asked, flabbergasted. What else can we do? Do you think there's such a good thing that the Academy will arrange a flying vehicle for you? In your dreams. Zhou Danjin unhappily retorted Qi Xianxian. There was nothing else but the anger he had suffered from Wei Wei earlier. Humph, he could only get it back on these students. None of them were easy to deal with. Look. Originally, he had fought to give them 3 days off, but in the end, even their bones were lazy. Instructor, are you guys alright? The little fatty could not help but exclaim, We'll have to fly 2 or 3 times from here to the dock. How could they get there before dark? The neurotic instructors were starting to do unreliable things again. Wei Wei remained silent. Zhou Dongjin's face was also solemn. He snorted, What? Why are you so frightened by such a small problem? It's only 2 or 3 Anka cities. You're already spirit masters, so why can't you fly? No, it wasn't that they couldn't fly, but where was their conscience to train them like this? Didn't the Academy have flying magical beasts? Where are the people from Arba? Wei Wei suddenly asked in a low voice. The little girl had left the group again. Just say that stoic face was disorganized and undisciplined. Look, he dropped the ball at the crucial moment. Chapter 18-19. I'm already here. Are you all blind? A chilly voice suddenly came from above. Everyone looked up. F*CK. Wasn't this little stoic carrying a small blue and white bag and standing in the air above the treetops? Moreover, she really was prepared to fly. The corner of Instructor Zhou's eyes twitched. Why are you carrying a bag? Don't trashy instructors like you like to seal other people's mystic conscious the most and then make them enter the mountains to train? How could she not be on guard after knowing your *TTY natures? She did have Paradise Planet, but she couldn't expose it in front of others. Carrying a bag was just for show, just in case. Instructor Zhou silently rubbed his nose. You're very well prepared. Jojo. Qi Xianxian smiled fawningly at Xiao Mu, but the little fellow turned her small head to face the back of her head, apathetically ignoring her. Everyone, what should they do? The more they looked at this little fellow, the cuter she became. She was clearly the one who took out a bunch of summoning talismans and suggested that they summon beasts, but after summoning a bunch of ferocious beasts, she was so hilarious that she actually treated them like strangers for 2 to 3 days. This little fellow was probably thinking, You guys are so annoying to see. You always like to appear in front of me. Cough, Jojo, we still have to fly to that whatever the nearest dock is in a while. It's quite far from Anka City. Why don't you come down first? Otherwise, you'll run out of spiritual energy halfway. What kind of joke was this? Of course, flying consumed energy. If it wasn't mystic energy, then it was spiritual energy. Of course, spiritual realm cultivators could naturally fly further than mystic cultivators. Moreover, spiritual realm cultivators consumed much less mystic energy when flying than mystic cultivators. Therefore, among this group, Qi Xianxian, a level 14 mystic cultivator, was probably the one who would suffer the most. She might also be the one who would run out of energy halfway. Worry about yourself. Xiao Mu expressionlessly glanced at the little fatty before landing in front of Qi Xianxian with a whoosh. She stretched out her small hand to grab Qi Xuanxuan's hand and soared into the sky again with a whoosh, leading the way down the academy peak. Yun Fiang chuckled as he looked at the little fellow's back and praised, What an energetic child. Wei Wei and the others silently glanced at the dean as they silently ridiculed in their hearts. The one who was truly blind was probably this Dean Yun. Energetic. Energetic my ass. You can see vitality on that paralyzed face? What the hell? Alright, since everyone is here, let's set off. As soon as Zhou Danjin finished speaking, he saw that none of the students paid any attention to him. They all soared into the air and followed Arber down the mountain. Zhou Danjin was speechless. Could he give him some face as a teacher? A bunch of traitors. Ha ha ha. The teacher from the fire spiritual faculty smiled and tried to smooth things over. The dean is right. It's a good thing that the children are energetic. Alright, let's hurry down the mountain. After bidding farewell to Dean Yun, the instructor of the 5 spirit faculty hurriedly chased after the group of students. Wei Wei snorted and said, "This bunch of brats. They're flying so fast now, but they don't even think about whether they'll run out of energy halfway." 4 hours later, the first one who couldn't fly anymore wasn't Qi Xian, but the little fatty. The moment he fell, everyone also fell from the sky and looked back at the little fatty, whose face was flushed red and sweating profusely. "Chow, chow chow, you're flying too easily." This week, the author was delayed by private matters and couldn't find time to write more every day. I'll give you 8 chapters tomorrow. Good night. Chapter 1820. One had to know that Arber was carrying someone. Qi Xian landed on the ground with a stupefied expression. She turned to look at Miss Chow and stammered, I didn't use any mystic energy." That's right, she didn't use any mystic energy and was completely carried by Miss Chow. Didn't this situation feel strange? Miss Chow was carrying a person and flying for 4 hours without even panting. This situation wasn't very normal. Arber glanced at them expressionlessly. "Are we still flying?" Wei Wei frowned and sized up the little girl. Logically speaking, they had already flown for 4 hours. It was impossible for her to not be tired at all. Looking at the little girl's pink and tender face, there wasn't the slightest bit of change. This was too disgusting. Cough. Why don't we rest for 15 minutes and let Hongwen recover his spiritual energy before we continue? Little Fatty nodded while sweating profusely. Okay. Arber naturally didn't mind. Since they said they wanted to rest, then she followed suit and rested. Everyone couldn't help feeling stifled when they saw her closing her eyes to rest without saying a word. They wanted to ask her why this little fellow didn't even pant after flying for such a long distance. Shuntian Prefecture's terrain was extremely vast, but the distance between the cities was very far. They had already flown a long distance away from Anka City, but they were still at least 4 to 6 hours away from the pier. Although Duanmu Qing and the rest weren't dog-tired like Little Fatty, they were truly exhausted and had used up quite a bit of mystic energy. At this moment, Lu Yu and Jiang Shaoxin both took out a bottle of spirit rejuvenation liquid and silently drank 2 mouthfuls. The instructors had tried all sorts of ways to train this bunch of miserable fellows. Originally, it would only take about 4 hours to carry them on a flying eagle. It wasn't strenuous at all, but now, 15 minutes later, Arber opened her eyes. Everyone's attention was on her, only to see her taking out a porcelain bottle and eating something that looked like a white candy bean. "Fly." Arber turned to look at the instructors. The fire spirit faculty instructor's square face twisted slightly. Then he nodded and said, "Okay, you can begin." Without another word, Arber grabbed Qi Xuanxuan's hand and pulled her up into the sky again. Everyone was speechless. "I'll make a move first." Everyone could only see the little girl pulling Qi Xian along as they glided across the sky like a swallow. In the blink of an eye, they were already several feet away from them. After a few more breaths of time, the little girl had already flown out of sight. Everyone stared blankly for a while, looking at each other. Instructor Hu of the Fire Spirit Department finally couldn't hold it in any longer. He coughed and said, "Instructors, don't you think that this little girl Arber seems to be flying a little too fast? Doesn't this consume spiritual energy? Hurry up." Zhou Danjin jumped up and hurriedly chased after him. As mentors, if they couldn't even fly a little girl, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? Little Fatty said with a bitter expression, Why do I feel like Jojo definitely didn't use spiritual energy to fly? She most likely used some other method but didn't tell us. That's right. Mata immediately agreed. This little fellow flew so easily. No matter how you look at it, there must be something going on. We should chase after her and ask her clearly. As they spoke, they flew up one after another. Chapter 18:21. Phew, wait for me. The little fatty wiped the sweat off his forehead and ran 2 steps. Then, he clumsily flew up and chased after the group. If he could, he really wanted to beat up Instructor Zhou who came up with this rotten idea. After another 4 hours, everyone finally arrived at the 10-mile port one after another. The sun was setting. There were no less than 100 large boats docked at the 10-mile port, rippling with the light water. On the surface of the sea not far away, there were several pleasure boats for sightseeing. It looked like they were brightly lit, and there were even singing voices of female singers coming from there. The group only rested for a quarter of an hour in the middle of the journey. Actually, they didn't eat or drink at all. When they arrived, not to mention the students, even the few instructors felt that they couldn't take it. Wei Wei didn't show any expression on his face, but he was probably cursing in his heart. He had already given Instructor Zhou a good scolding for coming up with this rotten idea. This old fellow came up with this rotten idea. Not only did he not take the instructors out, he even said that the instructors should set an example and train with the students. Wei Wei's old waist was about to break. He felt as if he had also been trained by Zhou Danjin, this idiot. When Instructor Wei arrived, the first thing he saw was Aber sitting on a stone block at the mouth of the port, leisurely chewing on 2 carrots. Qi Xian was squatting beside her, eating a meat bun happily. Seeing them like this, Wei Wei's mood immediately became complicated. Needless to say, Qiao Mu, this freak, had a pretty good cultivation. She was so young, yet she didn't feel the slightest bit of exhaustion after consuming 8 hours of flying. Furthermore, she could fly even more effortlessly than the instructors. What kind of rice did this little freak eat to grow up? The instructors arrived one after another. When they saw Aber and Qi Xuanxuan's leisurely appearance, they really had mixed feelings. Who the hell were they training? Why did they feel that this student of theirs was completely fine? There wasn't even a trace of fatigue on her face. On the other hand, the instructors had flown so hard that their faces were all green. Why did they all look so sullen? After waiting for a few more students to arrive, the little fatty finally ran over, panting heavily. At this moment, he didn't even have the strength to fly. Even if he drank 2 bottles of spirit recovery liquid, it was useless. It was best to sit down and drink a cup of Jojo's spirit tea. That would be great. Aba slightly raised her eyelids and glanced at everyone. She turned her head and continued chewing on the carrots in her hand. Zhou Dongjin's eyebrows slightly. Let's all rest first. I'll go ask the boatman. Little fatty sat down next to Qi Xian. He took 2 deep breaths and asked, Xian, why you and Qiao arrived very early? We've been here for an hour. We've been waiting for you all this time. The little fatty gazed at Qiao Mu and Qi Xian in shock. You guys are actually this fast? Yes. Jojo flew effortlessly. On the way, we even met someone riding a flying mystic beast. Cough, Jojo's speed is even faster than that person's. The little fatty hurriedly reached out and tugged at Aber's sleeve. Jojo, why are you so fast? Miss Chow's face was stoic. She glanced at him and reluctantly said, Flying elixir. Chapter 18:22. Flight Pill. Little Fatty and Motta exclaimed in unison. Motta immediately shut his mouth when Aber glared at him. He stole a glance at Instructor Wei, who had turned to look at them. Both of them had a bad feeling in their hearts at the same time. In that case, Jojo must have secretly taken some kind of flight pill to fly so fast. However, Jojo didn't let them take this flight pill. Was this to punish them for summoning the beasts earlier? Instructor wants to train you, Arbor said expressionlessly. It was fine if she secretly cheated alone, but if she cheated with a group of people, wouldn't the instructors be able to tell at a glance? At this moment, the instructors were only suspicious of her. They hadn't figured out how she could be so relaxed and fast. It should be known that people who took this high-grade flight pill could fly for at least 4 hours unimpeded, and their flying speed was comparable to some flying mystic beasts. This pill was special and practical, so not many people knew about it. Qiao Mu had ingested 2 of them in total, and she had only produced 7 of them using the rainbow mushrooms that she currently had. Now that she had used 2, she only had 5 left, so she had to use them sparingly. The rainbow mushrooms planted on Paradise Planet weren't ripe yet, so they naturally couldn't be used. Little Fatty glanced at Arbor resentfully. "Jojo, if the cheating instructor makes us fly back again, can you tie a rope around my waist and drag me from afar?" Arbor's lips twitched. She almost couldn't maintain the serious expression on her stoic little face. She hurriedly steadied her emotions and looked up and down at the miserable little fatty with a serious expression. Only then did she nod reluctantly. The others couldn't help but be speechless. Little fatty wanted to make an appointment with Jojo now, right? But they really wanted Jojo to tie a rope around his waist and drag them all along. In any case, Jojo had taken the flight pill, so it probably wouldn't be difficult to drag a bunch of people along. After a while, Instructor Zhou walked back with a chuckle. "All right, I've already contacted the ships. The fare to the Poland mansion is 100 spirit coins per person. Come, hand it over to the instructor in order. Later, the instructor will pay the captain." Qi Xianxian couldn't help but cry out, "You have to pay for this? How are you going to get to Poland Manor if you don't pay the ferry fare?" Zhou Danjin snapped back at her. "Isn't this a warm-up for the academy ranking competition? Why do poor students like us have to pay for the road?" Zhou Dan really wanted to spit on Qi Xuanxuan's face. "Poor student. Where's your face? Who doesn't know that you little bastards have earned a lot from the underground arena hegemony tournament? Now, he even dared to complain about being poor? Forget it." Instructor Zhou's face darkened as he said angrily, "Pay up. 100 spirit coins per person, no less." Qi Xianxian could not help but retort, "Teacher, we are fighting for the honor of the academy. Why do we have to pay out of our own pockets?" Teacher Zhou coughed and said, "You've all seen the situation in the academy. All right, don't talk nonsense, pay up. We still have to talk to the captain. The ship is about to depart tonight." Everyone looked at each other and reluctantly took out their money pouches. Qi Xianxian rushed to pay Arbor's ferry fare and couldn't help but grumble to Instructor Zhou. Chapter 1823. Instructor, if we win against the other academies at Mount Daizong, does that mean the academy will pay for our return trip? Wishful thinking. Instructor Zhou gave them a sideways glance. Without another word, he took the money bag and went back to find the boatman. Qi Xianxian made a face at his back and stuck out her tongue. "This stingy Instructor Zhou. Every time I ask him to pay, it's as if I'm asking for his life." "That's right." Mata snorted. "Let's go. Let's get ready to board the ship. To be honest, it's a long journey to Poland Prefecture. It's too generous to charge you 100 spirit coins for each person. You want me to subsidize another lunch? No way, no way." Food was so precious now. Even if it was just a white steamed bun every day, it wasn't something a boatman like him could provide. When Arbor and the others boarded the ship, they saw Instructor Zhou talking to the boatman with a pockmarked face. They covered their faces with their hands and walked past Instructor Zhou, pretending that they didn't know him. It was too embarrassing. This stingy instructor was wishful thinking. He wanted others to pay for their meals. It would take at least 7 days to get to Poland Prefecture by ship. If there were any changes at sea, it would be uncontrollable. "We have to get to Mount Daizong before the end of November. Please speed up along the way." Instructor Zhou and the boatman chattered endlessly in front of the cabin. All the students and instructors ignored him and entered the cabin in a single file. There were already 20 to 30 people sitting in the cabin. The chairs and benches around them were all occupied. When Arbor and the others entered, they couldn't find a place to sit. There was almost no place for them to stand. Damn it! 100 spirit coins to stay on such a broken ship. Mata couldn't help but complain. He turned to look at the men in the corner of the cabin who were staring at Arbor and Qi Xianxian. He glared at them fiercely. What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig your eyeballs out. Those men hastily lowered their heads. Even people like them, who frequently roamed the pugilistic world, could clearly sense the unusual pressure that Xiao Mu and company were exuding. Although this group of people all looked very young, they felt that they were not to be trifled with. Arbor couldn't help but frown. In this large cabin, the air was turbid and chaotic. Just by looking at the few men who occupied a few comfortable big back chairs in the corner of the cabin, one could tell that they were not good people. Many of the women and children were crowded near the cabin door. When they saw Arbor's group coming in, they shrank back. It was just that the space was too narrow, and they didn't have much space to hide. Xiao Mu nodded slightly at the middle-aged woman who was hugging a little girl and shrinking to the side. Although her small face did not have much of an expression, she said very gently, it's fine now." In fact, in her previous life, she had experienced much worse conditions than this. It was just that he was used to living like a prince in this life. Suddenly changing to such a bad place, he was a little uncomfortable at first. Arbor pulled Qi Xianxian to sit next to the woman who was hugging the child. He gave Mata, Little Fatty, and the others a look, asking them to find a place to sit. In this large cabin, it was somewhat inconvenient for men and women to squeeze together. Fortunately, the men and women consciously sat separately, leaving a particularly narrow path in the middle. Chapter 1824. In reality, Arbor could release that 3-story ship. However, she would not be able to explain it to the mentors. Furthermore, she did not want to receive special treatment everywhere. Murong Sun once said that going out into the world to gain experience was also a way to increase one's strength. Surviving in a vile environment was a very good way to gain experience. Moreover, she had already boldly used the flight pill that was used to cheat and secretly cheated the mentors. Now, she wanted to be more honest and follow the mentors down to earth. Cough, cough, cough. A strange smell assailed their noses. Arbor hastily covered his nose with his sleeve. Qi Xianxian also hastily covered her nose and mouth with a slight frown. Inside the ship's cabin, the burly men sitting comfortably in the corner couldn't help but start cursing. Arbor only needed to ask around to know that a little boy next to them vomited. He was probably seasick. However, the ship had just started sailing, and it would take at least 7 days to reach Poland Manor. Wouldn't the little boy vomit and faint on the way? Arbor took out a medicine bottle and poured out a pill. He handed it to the woman holding the child. Pass it to the child. It can stop the dizziness. The woman hastily accepted it and passed it to the boy's mother. Not long after, the woman holding the child quietly said to Arbor, "Miss, the child's mother sent a message to thank you. The medicine is very effective. The child is much more spirited after taking it." Arbor nodded but didn't say anything. This was just a small matter. An anti-dizziness pill was really not enough to reach the apex. The little girl in the woman's arms was about 5 or 6 years old. She opened her large eyes and cleverly glanced at Arbor and Qi Xianxian. The woman hastily smiled and said, "My surname is Qi. How should I address you, Mrs.? Just call me Ah Chow." "Xianxian." "Miss Ah Chow, Miss Xianxian." The woman hastily nodded and said, "Our ship is heading to Poland Manor, so it should take several days on the way. If the child has disturbed the 2 ladies, please forgive him." Arbor nodded. "It's not noisy." In fact, the little girl had not said a single word from the beginning to the end. She had been very quiet the entire time, but her eyes had been curiously looking at them, strangers. The young woman smiled. "Are you 2 young ladies going to Poland Manor to look for your relatives?" Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. "Sister Qi, we are heading towards that academy in Poland Manor? Qi Xianxian had forgotten the name of the school and hurriedly turned around to ask Arbor. Heaven-bestowing academy, Arbor said expressionlessly. Ah, yes. It's that heavenly academy. He didn't know what they were up to all the time. They had changed the rules of the competition at the last minute and had to enslave this group of students to go to Mount Dai Zone to beat corpse puppets. The woman immediately widened her eyes and covered her mouth as she softly exclaimed, "Could it be that the two ladies are spirit masters?" Arbor did not reply. Qi Xianxian shook her head and smiled. No. She was only a little level 14 mystic cultivator. He wasn't lying, was he? When the woman continued to pursue the matter, the two of them only picked a few simple things to talk about and didn't continue speaking. Arbor closed her eyes to rest. Seeing that they seemed to be quite tired, the woman was too embarrassed to continue rambling. Arbor couldn't help but inwardly sigh in relief. In reality, she wasn't someone who liked to chat with people. Chapter 1825. The next day, the weather outside looked pretty good. Arbor and Qi Xianxian did not want to stay in the cabin anymore, so they walked out of the cabin and went to the deck to get some fresh air. The weather in November was just right for the weather. The sea was slightly cold, but for cultivators like Arbor and Qi Xianxian, it was not much of a difference. When the two of them went to the deck, they noticed that there were already a few umbrellas on the deck. A group of young people were sitting under the umbrellas, drinking and having fun. When they saw Arbor and Qi Xianxian, the group of young people's eyes lit up. One of them hurriedly stood up and said, Two ladies, I didn't see you yesterday." Qi Xianxian was stunned. She pulled Arbor back and whispered in her ear, "Looks like there's a single VIP cabin on this ship." Unlike them, who had spent the night in the cabin with a swarm of people, these young masters must have spent the night in the VIP cabin. Last night, they were the last batch to board the ship. At that time, the sky was already dark. Naturally, they did not see this group of young masters who had already returned to their cabins to rest. Qi Xianxian snorted and pulled Arbor to the back of the ship. She was not familiar with them, so there was no need to greet them. Arbor naturally did not have any objections. She was too lazy to talk to this group of people. Wait, two ladies, please wait." At this moment, the other person spoke up. In a flash, he had already arrived in front of the two of them and extended his hand to block their path. "What do you want?" Qi Xianxian asked impatiently. Haha, it must be fate that we meet. Our young Master Zhang would like to invite the two ladies for a drink. Arbor was expressionless. Qi Xuanxuan's face was filled with anger. She waved her sleeves and brushed away the man's hand. Where did this pervert come from? Why aren't you scramming? That person's face immediately turned ugly. The young man who was called Young Master Zhang could not help but frown. He stared at Arbor and Qi Xianxian, as if he was unhappy that the two of them did not give him face. How could Qi Xianxian care whether young Master Zhang was happy or not? It was even more impossible for Arbor to do so. He didn't even glance at them from the corner of his eye. The young master who stopped the two of them couldn't help but feel a little angry. "Ladies, you probably don't know the identities of us brothers. This is Zhang Wudong, the second young master of the Zhang clan on Hongyuan Island. I am Tai Feng, the son of Shuntian Prefecture's head steward." Arbor silently glanced at the person who was talking non-stop and glanced at Qi Xianxian from the corner of his eyes. Xianxian immediately understood, and without another word, she sent a flying kick over. Tai Feng was caught off guard and was sent flying by Qi Xianxian's kick, crashing heavily into an umbrella. The entire deck was filled with cries of surprise. Tables collapsed to the ground, and cups and plates were scattered all over the place. Xiao Mu hastily tugged at Xuanxuan's leg and promptly slipped away. After entering the cabin, Arbor could not help but facepalm. "Why did you kick him?" Qi Xianxian looked at her with a dumbfounded expression. "You just gave me a look, and I immediately understood. Aren't you asking me to kick him?" Arba was speechless. This sister only wanted you to stop talking nonsense with him. Indeed, in this world, other than young Master Mo, there was no one else who could understand her gaze. I will give you 2 more chapters in the morning. I won't talk about this week's troubles. Talking about it makes me cry. I only have time to write at 10 p.m. every day. Chapter 18:26. Then what should we do now? Qi Xianxian leaned close to Qiao Mu's head and muttered softly. What else could they do? They could just treat it as if nothing had happened. Arba glanced at her, and Qi Xianxian immediately understood and nodded. All right. Then let's drag little Fatty and the rest down with us. If those people come to provoke us, we brothers and sisters will beat them up together. Arba was speechless. Why did he feel that he was speaking in a different world from Xianxian? Arba sat down speechlessly and continued to sit beside Mrs. Qi. Not long after, the boatman sent people over to distribute food and dried fish to some people. This was their breakfast. Of course, at this time, it was better to have food than to have nothing to eat. Mrs. Qi, how much did you pay and how much did you get? Qi Xianxian looked at them curiously. Huan and I paid a total of 150 spirit coins. Mrs. Qi sighed and said, This is half of the income one got from selling my ancestral house and land in the countryside. Qi Xianxian nodded in understanding. This ship captain's fee is quite high. However, Mrs. Qi said, You can't say that. After all, the journey is quite far. Furthermore, this ship captain has been sailing in this sea for many years and is very experienced. As long as we can reach Poland Manor safely, we don't ask for anything else. Qi Xianxian nodded. That's true. Ladies, do you want some dried fish? Mrs. Qi saw the 2 of them sitting beside her and asked embarrassedly. Oh, no need, no need. Qi Xianxian hurriedly waved her hand and said, We just ate a little. Let Huan have some. The fishy smell of the dried fish was extremely strong. Qi Xianxian felt dizzy just by smelling it. Furthermore, the mother and daughter only ate this much for breakfast. Why would they fight for food with a child? Huan, don't eat too fast. Mrs. Qi patted her daughter's head and said with a smile. Move, move, move. A few angry curses came from outside the main cabin. Following that, the cabin door was pulled open. 3 or 4 men dressed in cyan clothes, revealing their muscular arms, appeared at the door of the main cabin and coldly said, Get out of my way, all unrelated people. Our young master is looking for 2 female criminals who beat people up and escaped. Don't get in my way. Arba and Qi Xianxian looked at each other and frowned. Even if he didn't look for trouble, people would come looking for trouble. Get lost. Get lost. The men kicked away the people sitting by the door. The group of women immediately shrank into a ball, shivering. They all sat close to the side, wishing that they could immediately become invisible. Arba stood up first. Qi Xianxian naturally stood up as well. The little fatty, who hadn't slept well last night and had been sleepy all this time, suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. He roared at the men, What are you guys doing? The green-clothed servant glared at the little fatty. Damn fatty, sit down. It's none of your business. The 2 of you, come out and follow us to see young master. Oh, these kids are pretty awesome. Before Mata could finish his sentence, Instructor Zhou smacked him on the head. Speak properly. Don't act like a hooligan. Mata's mouth twitched speechlessly. He walked out of the crowd and stood beside the little fatty. What's the matter? Were we on a mission to arrest someone? Aren't you just a few servants and lackeys? Don't be so arrogant. Be careful not to kick an iron plate. Chapter 18:27. What? Brother, do you mean that you are those iron plates? When the servants heard this, they laughed wantonly. Mata, little fatty, and the rest were all wearing the academy's training uniform. In order to increase their income and reduce their expenditure, cough, they were stingy. Every student was given a set of cloth clothes. The clothes of the 2 female students were made of slightly better quality cloth, while the male students were all dressed in the same gray cloth. Duanmu Qing, Lu Yu, and the rest thought that the academy's uniform was too ugly, so they kept it at the bottom of their chests the day it was sent. Only Little Fatty and Mata wore the academy's uniform all day long. They said that they didn't need to wash it if it was worn out, so they could just throw it away like wiping the floor. The servants didn't care about the commoners who wore cloth clothes. In their eyes, Mata and Little Fatty were poor people who were squeezing into the main cabin. Their young master had to spend thousands of spirit coins every day to stay in the luxurious and noble cabin. How could these commoners compare to their young master's family background? Not at all. Several servants raised their arms and quickly walked toward Qiao Mu and Qi Xianxian. They revealed wicked smiles on their faces and reached out to grab their chests with malicious intent. Bang! The figures that had flipped over rushed out of the deck through the cabin door and crashed onto the ship with a loud bang. How could they still get up? Every one of them clutched their stomachs and wailed in agony. Qiao Mu stepped out of the main cabin with a frigid expression. Little Fatty, Mata, Duanmu Qing, and the rest followed behind her and rushed to the deck. Throw them into the sea to feed the fish. If Xi and Qi Xianxian were really weak girls, how could they have a good ending? Looking at their despicable faces, they must have bullied men and women often. Evil people had to be dealt with by evil people. Auber had never thought that she was good, but she had her own bottom line. However, these people didn't seem to have it. Do you feel a sense of accomplishment when you bully those weak and powerless civilians? They couldn't bully the strong, so they only dared to bully the weak? As soon as Auber's voice fell, the Little Fatty and Mata immediately made their move. As if they were grabbing chickens, each of them picked up 2 or 3 of the green-clothed servants and walked towards the end of the deck. Those few people were so scared that their faces turned ghastly pale. They kept begging for mercy, crying out for their parents. Young Master Zhang walked out of the VIP cabin with his arm around a young woman with a slender waist. His expression immediately changed when he saw who it was. "What are you doing?" Zhang Wudan shouted angrily. Tai Feng also came over. Seeing the 4 or 5 servants being caught like chickens, his face changed. "Let me give you a piece of advice. Quit while you're ahead. Don't be so shameless." Plop, plop, plop. After a few splashes, the 4 or 5 people were mercilessly thrown into the water by Mata and the Little Fatty. "How dare you!" Young Master Zhang roared, "Attack!" Immediately, 4 or 5 figures darted out from behind him and rushed towards Auber and Qi Xianxian. Qiao Mu's expression chilled, and a wooden vine that slithered like a snake slithered out from her wrist, whipping the people's running feet with a swish. Pa! Immediately, one of them was tripped by the wooden vine and fell heavily to the ground. Auber didn't say anything else. She raised her knife and cut off one of that person's ears. A trace of fierceness flashed across her eyes. "Kill them. Make up for yesterday's 2 changes." Chapter 1828. A graceful snow leopard abruptly appeared beside Qiao Mu. In a breath's time, it pounced on one of Zhang Wudan's men and bit him in the throat, throwing him away. Behind him, Mata and the others did not hesitate to act. The 6 spirit masters moved quickly. In less than a second, the 4 or 5 men summoned by Zhang Wudan were all taken care of. Spirit energy circulated in their hands as they looked coldly at the pale-faced Zhang Wudan and Tai Feng. Zhang Wudan immediately took a few steps back in a panic and asked timidly, who are you?" "Someone who wants your life." Mata's water ball hit Zhang Wudan's chest without warning, sending him flying out and crashing onto the deck, rolling back and forth in pain. Mata stepped on Zhang Wudan's back and took out a dagger from his sleeve. He gestured back and forth in front of Zhang Wudan's frightened face. "I told you not to be so arrogant. Did you kick an iron plate, Zhang Wudan looked at the handsome man in front of him with fear. His whole body exuded a sloppy aura. This person was really ruthless. That dagger was cold, and when it slid against his left and right cheeks, Zhang Wudan was so scared that he almost screamed. Don't kill us, don't kill us. Tai Feng knelt on the ground in fear. He repeatedly cupped his hands and begged for mercy. Yes, we were blind. We didn't know who you are. Please let us go. My father is the head steward of Shuntian Hall. Pa. Xiao Mu slapped the left side of Tai Feng's face heavily across the air, and a cold glint flitted across her eyes. A mere manager of Shuntian Prefecture wants to suppress me? Take off his clothes and throw him to feed the fish, the little girl said expressionlessly. Okay. Mata laughed heartily and kicked Tai Feng's head. Tai Feng was rolling on the ground in fear. Mata picked him up with one hand as if he was carrying a chick and strode forward. No. Tai Feng was so scared that he peed his pants. His face was even paler than a dead person's. As he begged for mercy, he cried, Young masters and young misses, this lowly one was blind. This lowly one won't dare to do it again. Please let me go. Sob. Wait, everyone, wait. Hearing the news, the captain of the ship immediately rushed onto the deck. When he saw Mata holding Tai Feng in one hand and throwing him outside the mast, his face changed. No. Everyone, young masters and young ladies, please show mercy. The boatman was almost scared to death. These two weren't ordinary people. One of them was the third young master of the Shuntian Prefecture's head steward, while the other was the second young master of the Grand Origin Island. If anything happened to the two of them on his ship, would the two families let him, a little boatman, go? Wasn't he going to tear him apart alive? S.A. Mata chuckled and looked at the old man. You want to meddle in other people's business? Do you think you can meddle in other people's business? The boatman quickly stepped forward with an apologetic smile and cupped his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, please calm down. Calm down. When we go out, it's better to have one more friend, isn't it? It's really unwise of you to go against Shuntian Prefecture and Grand Origin Island. Haha. Shuntian Prefecture and Grand Origin Island? If you offend me, you'll be in trouble too. Chapter 1829. With that, he loosened his grip. That boatman's expression changed drastically, and he ran forward in a panic. He saw that Tai family's third young master was thrown into the sea by this vile-looking man. With a splash, he created a big splash on the surface of the sea. Aba's lips curled up, and he casually flicked a pill into the sea, a cold smile on his lips. Since they kept coming here to court death without knowing what was good for them, why shouldn't she grant them their wish? On the other side, the little fatty also kicked Zhang Wudan into the sea, startling that frail and delicate girl into shrieking. Aba swept a cold glance over, and coldly said, You want to play in the sea too? That girl immediately didn't dare to speak. She shut her mouth tightly, hugged her head, and shrank to one side, looking at Aba's group before her as if she was looking at a ghost. Hurry up and save them for me. The boatman anxiously cried out, and hurriedly ran, instructing the assistant beside him to lower the small boat, while he planned to jump onto the small boat to save them personally. Ah! Boss, look! Suddenly, a worker let out a cry of alarm. The boatman's heart immediately thumped, and when he looked at the sea with furrowed brows, he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. He saw that on the surface of the sea, dozens of sea sharks had gathered out of nowhere, baring their sharp teeth, and were tearing at Zhang Wudan and Tai Feng in the sea. Both Zhang Wudan and Tai Feng were shocked, and their hearts were filled with fear, but in the face of the sea shark's attack, they still unleashed their greatest survival instincts. The two of them jumped out of the sea at the same time. However, in less than a second, they crashed heavily into the sea. Only then did they realize that the mystic energy around them had been sealed by someone. Ah! Zhang Wudan only felt that a piece of her left leg was bitten off by a sea shark. After fresh blood flowed out, it attracted carnivorous fish from all around, and they quickly surrounded them. How would the boatman dare to get off the boat to save them at this time? He was just an ordinary commoner, just slightly more powerful than the average person. Even young Master Zhang and young Master Tai couldn't deal with Hai Sha, so how could he win? However, he couldn't just stare blankly and watch the two people fight to the death with the shark in the water. If this matter were to spread out, he reckoned that he would be killed 4 or 5 times by Shun Tian Hall's great manager. Quick! Save them! Save them! How do we save him, boss? With so many sharks below, who would dare to go down? The few crew members felt their eyelids twitching wildly. If they continued to attract sharks, perhaps their small ship would be attacked by the sharks and capsized. Don't King bullshit. Hurry and save them. Drag them up, drag them up. Use the sling. Get the hook over here. Quick, 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 quick. The boatman hurriedly took the tools handed over by the crew and threw them into the sea, which immediately caught young Master Zhang's collar. Everyone worked together and pulled young Master Zhang out of the sea. At the same time, a small sea shark was also pulled out of the sea because it was biting young Master Zhang's left leg. Ah! Zhang Wudong let out a mournful scream. One person and one sea shark fell onto the deck at the same time. The boatman hurriedly called for the crew members to surround and attack that sea shark, chopping it into several pieces with a flurry of blades. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. Chapter 1830. Following that, the boatman and the crew used the same method to pull the dying Tai Fung out of the sea. Although Tai Fung was unconscious, he seemed to have fainted due to fear. Only his arm was bitten twice, but the rest of his injuries were not serious. Unlike Zhang Wudong, whose left leg was completely bitten off, and the wound on her right leg was very big. It seemed like it would have to be amputated. Everyone was secretly shocked as they looked at Auber and the others. This group of young people looked gentle and refined, but they did not expect them to be so cruel and ruthless when they fought. Auber walked to the mast and glanced at the sea surface indifferently. Then, he threw another pill into the sea. Not a moment later, the sea sharks that had originally clustered together slowly dispersed. When the boatman saw this, he involuntarily let out a long sigh of relief. However, his gaze toward Xiao Mu was filled with bewilderment and uncertainty. Auber turned around and walked towards the cabin. The boatman quickly smiled apologetically and called out to her, "Miss, please wait. In a while, I will change 3 cabins for the young masters and misses. It will be completely free of charge. I hope everyone can live comfortably." Auber raised his eyebrows slightly and did not say much. He turned around and left. Qi Xianxian glanced at him indifferently and said with a smile, "Then we will have to trouble you." The boatman was probably scared out of his wits by the commotion they caused. Actually, everyone did not care whether it was a large cabin or a small one. After all, they would arrive in 7 to 10 days. They did not care if they were a little tired during the journey. However, the boatman obviously did not think so. After experiencing this wave of events, the boatman could not wait to worship Auber and the others. Thus, Auber and the others lived very peacefully for the next few days. The 5 mentors benefited from the students and also received 2 noble cabins. They did not have to squeeze into the large cabins with the others. Most importantly, they did not have to spend money to compensate for the difference in price. Only a fool would reject such a good thing. Auber and Xianxian naturally stayed in the same cabin. When he saw Xianxian coming in with 2 washed apples, he could not help but look up at her. "Hey!" Qi Xianxian walked up with a smile and sat down next to Xiao Mu. "Just now, I heard that young Sir Zhang from Great Source Island has been coyly refusing to amputate his leg for several days. Unfortunately, his leg is about to rot, and if he doesn't amputate it soon, it will endanger his life. Therefore, I finally agreed to it today. Just now when I passed by, I heard that idiot shouting and yelling inside." Auber flipped through a book and nodded with a gentle expression. If it weren't for Zhang Wudong, who was relying on his family's power to make trouble for her, she wouldn't even bother to look at him. Qi Xian quickly peeled the apples and passed one to Arba. After she finished peeling the other one, she opened her mouth and took a bite. It was crispy and sweet. Qi Xuan's eyes, which were exclusive to gluttons, shone with happiness. Arba glanced at her and lowered his head, speechless. He flipped another page of the book and said softly, "When we reach Poland Manor's territory, do you want to find a restaurant and have a good meal?" "Yes, yes." Qi Xuan's mood immediately brightened up. Her listless appearance from the past 2 days was swept away. Arba's lips curled into an undetectable smile. He put down the book beside him and said indifferently, "Let's go. Accompany me to take a breather." Okay. Let's go out for a walk. To be honest, I can't stand being cooped up in this cabin all the time. But you're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.